Carthage City Council, Tuesday, March 4th, 2021 to order. Do you have the roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Reese. Vice Mayor Reese.
Here.
Councilwoman Carroll. Here. Councilman Babcock.
Here.
Councilman Eagle.
Here.
Councilman Peters.
Here.
Councilman Petty.
Here.
City Attorney Moore.
Here.
All right, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the two special call meetings and the regular meeting of February 4th? Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve all three?
Yes.
Yes. Motion to approve all three. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? Yes, sir.
We don't have to go on this too deep, but the way we conducted that meeting and the way the communication was, I don't think that we could all hear each other, especially with the attorney. And I feel like that one was definitely not following decorum as far as those meeting minutes go. So I'll be voting against them, and I'm sure it's going to pass anyway, so it's fine. But let's just make sure we stay in order. If we're going to be doing Robert's rules, let's stick to it. If there's a motion on the table, we need to close out that motion before we close out a meeting.
Are you referring to the minutes, whether you want to approve the minutes?
Yes, there were motions on the table, and then we motioned in the middle of a motion to close the meeting. Can't do that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. Consideration of bills over 2,000.
We have Attorney Moore's invoice, which I included in your guys' packet. That was $2,220. Our fleet bill, which was $2,143.02. And then the Westcom bill that was for the repair, emergency repair, the radio lift station, which was $4,629.19.
Do I hear a motion to approve payment of these bills?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The next order of business here is, this is opportunity for, if we have citizens here in town or business owners here in town who would like to speak to citizens' concerns, you have an opportunity at this point to do that. Is anyone here that would like to do that? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to the different reports. The first is the mayor's report. Welcome, if you would sign it, thank you. A couple of things I'd like, first of all, our new CMFO who had, Scott Ezell, had his surgery last week. He is doing well, is still on board to come to work at March 15th. He had some back surgery and has to have a little bit of time to recuperate, but he's beginning to do some things from his home. Interested in doing this as his Eagle Scout project. I sent the application in again and really didn't think we had a chance at it, but lo and behold, one of the cities that got the grant, there was a problem with the area they chose for it. So we got it by default. So I'm so excited for him. It's a $25,000 grant for a dog park. It will cover the building and construction and also maintenance, to help with the maintenance afterwards after it's built. Because after he creates that park, it will be designated to the city because that's our property. So it should be a really nice, he should be able to put together a really nice dog park. I think it's going to be really fun for our city to have that. Yes, sir.
What's the match on that grant?
There's no match.
Awesome.
It's
That's great.
total. It's not even a grant. It's an award of $25,000, and this comes from the Boyd Foundation, the Boyd Dog Park Foundation. Randy Boyd, who made a considerable amount of money in dog products, does this for the last few years. He's been giving grants to cities across the state. And as I said, we thought about it in 2019, but it just did not come together like we wanted. So this will be something that will help him, and he's very excited about it. I think we all are very happy for him. We found out for sure yesterday. The gentleman who helps with the grants came to Carthage, looked at the site to make sure it was okay for this, gave some suggestions to him. So we're pretty good to go. I think he'll start pretty soon on that. So we're real pleased for him. So that's all I have to say. Attorney Moore, do you have?
Don't have a formal report, but if anybody has any questions, glad to answer.
Any questions? Okay. We'll go to the departments then. Madam Reporter, do you have any?
No formal report, but I'll take questions as well.
Chief Davis, the police department, do you have any?
I don't have anything unless anybody has any questions for me.
Okay. Great. Okay, then in Public Works, Mr. Leslie, do you have?
I have nothing, unless y'all got some questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Water and sewer, Derek?
I don't have anything to report, and I just want to brag on all the guys during the recent ice and snow and all the water leaks and stuff that's been going on around the city. They've done a good job.
Outstanding. We want to thank them all. Y'all kept our roads where we could move, and we want to thank all of the departments for keeping all the water and sewer running, and our police ready to go, and fire if we needed them. So thank you to all of our departments. I know y'all pull some long hours, and we really appreciate it very, very much. And because some couldn't come in, you kind of did double duty. I know somebody did. So thank you. Water plant, Mr. Russ, there you go.
Yeah, everything's running normally at the plant. Everything's fine, nothing to report there. I do have a few items I'll make everybody aware of. Every year we put out a water quality report that goes in the paper. We call it a CCR, but it's a consumer confidence report. By law, we have to, get that to the citizens some way. So we've completed ours this year, and it normally goes in the paper in April. This year, actually for a couple of years, you've had the option. You could actually create a link online, post it online, and then just put it on your water bill for 3 months in a row, and then post it in the normal places, and that will satisfy the state's requirements. So we're looking at doing that this year. It'll save the city between $200 and $300, from just putting it in the paper alone. So we're looking to do that this year. I'm not saying we won't put it in the paper, but I'm going to try to get the link up and going so that we can do that. Also, in January, late January, I had to submit a source water protection plan, which basically each water plant has to monitor their area of the river or source water that they draw from. So we had to put together a plan that lists any potential contamination problems 5 miles upstream and 1 mile downstream. So we put that report together, and Tuesday I received official TDEC approval for our plan. That plan is good for 3 years, and we have to update it every 3 years. So if any new businesses come into town, or any potential industrial or anything that's within 1,000 foot of that river, please let me know so that I can plot it on our maps and get it in the next plan, because that's something that I update it every year, but I have to submit it to the state for approval every 3 years. Also, in 2018, Congress passed, and in October of that year, the President signed into effect the American Water Infrastructure Act, which is basically a new regulation where we have to certify to the state and ultimately the EPA that we are developing and updating risk assessments and emergency plans. It sort of goes along with the source water protection, except this covers a broader spectrum. It covers cybersecurity attacks. It covers physical attacks on city property. There's actually 43 pages of potential threats that we don't have to address all of them, but we have to address some of them. And I've got that completed. I'll be submitting it sometime before June, and then from June, that starts the timetable. I'll have 6 months. I have to implement that into the emergency operation plan. So I didn't bring these reports tonight for everybody to see because it totals over 60 pages. But if anybody's here who's interested in reading it or seeing it, if you'll just give me your email address, I'll send you a Word document on all of it. And that goes for the citizens too. If the citizens want to see it, I'll send it to them. Anybody that wants one. So that's all I've got, unless you have questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Wastewater plants, Mr. Steve.
Yeah,
I just want to recognize Ricky Brown and Drew Gentry again on the flash floods we had this weekend. We're running triple capacity at the plant first part of the week. And Drew had the plant this weekend, and he took care of business. And I just like to recognize them because them guys come in and get it done. And other than that, we're running as usual. If y'all got any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer.
Hey, thank you. And Chief Hyatt. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Don't have a written report because I wasn't able to log into the National Fire Incident Reporting System portal again. But we've had 40 calls so far this year.
Okay.
Unless y'all have some other questions, that's my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Grant reports. We have Evan is here, and then I have an email that was sent by one of our grant writers to UCBD who couldn't be here. So do you mind if we just do this, and then I'll get yours? This is about what was the Turkey Creek water tank that is now the water pump system that this was an ARC grant, and we were very lucky to be able to switch it over to this type of grant. And Rusty can tell you a little bit more about how this works afterwards if you want to. But what we've done, and this is reading from his email, the scope revision was approved by ARC. The new contract is now being processed by Tennessee Economic and Community Development. Once the new contract has been approved and signed, plans and specs will be submitted to Tennessee Economic and Community Development for approval. Once plans and specs have been approved, the project will be ready for bid. Also, Mr. Lee, our grant writer, has asked for a 12-month extension, which is great, Rusty, so this gives us more time to get it finished. So now we go to, expires on 7/31/2021. And our engineer feels we can get it completed by this time, and he feels pretty sure we're going to get that extension, so that really helps us a lot. Just so you know, this is kind of unheard of that they switched the scope. Well, the scope is the same because we're still getting the water from one place to the other. It's just not through a tank, it's through a pump system. So we were very fortunate to be allowed to do this, to switch it over like this. If you have more questions, you can ask Rusty afterwards. It's a pretty big deal. So thank you. Mr. White, Evan White is our engineer with some others here.
Just the park, we're still waiting on T-Day to approve the bid that Isengard submitted. That's where we're at with that.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the Fire Hall Bay?
I can, unless that's later in the agenda.
I don't think it is. Is it in? It's not in the agenda. No, we'll just. The chief's here.
All right, the Fire Hall, as y'all remember, we was going to do a 3-bay extension. The third bay puts us all the way over against the curb that is there now. That pretty much is, I'm not going to say that's y'all's property line. That's pretty much probably what most people think is the property line. I've had a surveyor on it, and he's come and done his work on it. The problem is that one of your neighbor's deeds goes back to 1930. And the deeds that are actually neighboring your property is 1957 is where the fire hall deed comes from. So they just keep copying it down and recording it. So that's the most accurate deed is 1957. And in 1957, they just told us it was heading in a direction at a certain amount of footage from a margin that is non-existent, I guess you could say. So back in the day, the margin of the road was sometimes known as the right-of-way, sometimes it was known as the edge of the road. There's different definitions, and since y'all got a 1st and 3rd Street, that's kind of where it's talking about. But the surveyor says you can't go off of the margin because it could technically have moved over the years from 1930 to now. Who knows if 3rd Street was truly exactly where it's at right now. It's what the surveyor is saying. There was a block building that is referenced in every deed that's non-existent anymore. And that is his concern, is the building's not there, which is the only physical structure that is called out in the deeds to be a reference point, since we don't have bearings and degrees or distances that's very accurate. So he says in order to get your property line where it is, you have to get in contact with the 3 property owners beside you. He can put the line where he thinks it is, and we've got to be in agreement. The 3 adjoining owners have got to be in agreement with y'all where it's at, or you got to go to the next step, which would be legal proceedings. So I wanted to bring it before y'all. It's going to take quite a bit of time to get all this run through, to establish this property line due to the, and one of them's the church property. I guess y'all know the AME church there. So you've got some, I think the mayor's talked with the attorney that's representing them. You got trustees that you have to deal with there. They may have to, I don't even know if they're even if they even meet, but you have to somehow work through a group of people there that would agree. You've got a neighbor that owns 517 square feet. If you believe that or not. I don't know how that even happens, but 517 square feet is one of the properties that is in question. So there's 3 property owners to deal with. I just wanted to run it by you. We can still do the 3-bay. If we do the 2-bay, you don't have to do anything with your property line. There's plenty of room. Y'all voted to do the 3rd bay. We can do the, I'm good with doing the 3rd bay. It's just I want you to realize it's going to take some time to get all this done and recorded. And also, if there's always that chance that one of the property owners does not want to agree, and then it kind of all falls through until you go through your proper proceedings.
Mayor Smith, can we ask Chief Hyatt to explain kind of what happens in the winter to our new council members in regards to it freezing up in our tanks and the water and how that works, why there is a timeline on getting this done during when it's warmer? Would that be appropriate?
Certainly. Did you have anything else to add?
No, that's what I'll take all kinds of questions on this.
I did want, hold just one second. As Evan mentioned, I have spoken with the attorney. He's actually Tillman Payne, you know him, and he is going to talk to James King, who's one of the trustees. I think aren't there only 2 properties actually bordering ours?
According to the tax map, there's 3. There's a James Williams, a George and Frank Allen, and the AME Church.
Yeah, I thought 2 were kind of side by side and only 1 touched. Am I wrong about that then?
Yeah, there's 3.
There's 3.
According to what the tax map shows.
So we would just have to get everyone to get in agreement where the line is, even if, I think we had thought about if we could get them all together and say, could we just agree that this is the line and give enough space to put that 3rd bay, but that's going to be pretty difficult. Do you have a thought about that?
No, I think that's correct. I mean, if you can draw a survey line and dictate where it is, and if all the current property owners agree to it, then that solves your problem. You can record an instrument to that effect and move forward. But I don't, this depends on the property owners as to how easy or difficult that'll be. Of course, the town, if it decided to, could condemn what it needs to, to build the 3rd bay.
What's that process like?
Well, it's a lawsuit, so you'd have to, you'd want to get a survey description to start with. You'd have to file a petition. You'd have to serve all 3 property owners. You get possession of the property relatively quickly, like within 60 to 90 days of after you file it. And, maybe all the parties would agree to compensation. Otherwise, you could have a protracted lawsuit.
Do we have any kind of address or anything for these others? Did we run into the other owners to even contact them?
He was not he don't want to proceed until y'all tell him what direction to go.
No, I mean the owners. Do we have an address or contact for the owners?
Oh yeah, it's wherever their tax bill goes is your contact.
So I'll get you in just a second, Joe. So what do you suggest? You contact them and just see if they might meet, just see?
Yeah, I definitely think the first step would be to reach out to them and explain the problem and see if they'd be agreeable to giving you how much land you needed to do that, if you wanted to move forward with the 3 bays.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Is there are the people, another church meets there, But the other lot, is there
I don't think.
are they deceased? Or is it the
The
family of
original
the
owners
deceased?
died intestate,
Okay.
and the deed got deeded over to the,
Because it used to be in the 50s, there was a house or building right there.
the block. If somebody knows where the block building is and could point, they could try to locate the foundation, but, the
Would that,
surveyor was not able to find any.
It was like a business when I was a kid. I forgot what it was now, but I think it might have burned or something.
so if we could locate that, would that help us find the
Yes, they said
line?
if you could find any of the remains of it, that we could intact, find the corner, then you could
Bill, do
go off
you-
of that, but.
Councilman Reese, do you remember kind of where?
I just didn't see it, but
Okay,
it was like a business.
was it closer to the fire hall or?
Closer to fire hall, yeah.
It says 3 feet, 3 feet from y'all's line.
Yeah, it was further away from the church,
Okay.
much further away.
And Chief Hyde, I mean, we're certainly all for this. I think everybody would like to have the third bay. It just, let's
It's
figure
not a
out.
matter, Mayor, of wanting a third bay, it's a
Yeah.
matter of needing a
Right,
third
I
bay.
understand.
We have to have 3 engines in order to meet our pump capacity.
Mhm.
We have a ladder truck, we have a support vehicle. I have a trailer with mobile air. Right now, I've got 3 bays. So I've got 3 other pieces of equipment that I can't house in our fire station. One is at the old EMS station. One is at City Hall, the other's parked outside, and that's what Councilman Eagle was referring to. That's a mobile air trailer.
Right.
The gauges on it froze last year because I don't have a way to house it inside. It's gonna cost probably $4,000 to $5,000 just to repair what's in there. And there's no point in repairing it until I can house it inside. So we've not had the use of that for soon be 2 years. And that's not even taking into account 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road, which I would like to do. 3 bays is what we need now, not what we're gonna need in the future.
Would you be, oh, yes, sir.
Go ahead, you were
I was just, would you be okay for me to continue the conversation with Mr. Tillman and Mr. King to see where they are as far as the trustees of the church, and then if we can locate contacts for the other 2 owners to reach out to them and just see if we could make an
That was my
agreement?
suggestion, was to at least contact them and
Yes, I
see if
think
they'd
so.
be willing to.
I just want y'all to know, I told you it'd be done. We've been trying to get plans to you. I just want y'all to know, we've hit this roadblock and it's gonna take some time to get it all.
And without trying to rush anybody, we concluded our ISO review with an engine now. I've got the money in this year's budget to buy a used apparatus. I got nowhere to put it. So unless we replace that, we do risk losing our ISO rating. It's not a matter of wanting, it's a matter of having to.
Certainly, yes, sir.
Of course, we want all 3, and that seems like common sense, but sounds like we have an immediate need to go ahead and house at least 1 or 2 things. Could we not move forward on the 2, and forgive me if we can't, but if we could not move forward on the 2, and then in the process get that 3rd one, even if it takes a little bit of time, at least that would be housed, and we can go ahead and fix what we need to fix.
It'll be a lot cheaper to do 3 now than 2 now and 1 later.
Depending on
He's
it.
nodding his head.
How much difference in, how much difference?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, that was my question too. I had that same thought, but usually it is cheaper to go ahead and do it all.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I wanted the chief to say that is because we are running into a time issue because it is weather related. And so about last year when we were talking about this, we were running into it before because winter was coming up. So well, we're just going to wait till the next year. We've got to have this done by the time it starts freezing. And so I just wanted to make sure you all were aware that it's a time sensitive thing that we don't want to kick the can down. So whatever our decision is on this, we need to make it more of an expedient decision.
Okay.
And that's all I was trying to point out.
We are going to have to deal with the legality, yes, sir.
I recommend, or if it requires a motion, I recommend that we go ahead and research trying to do a 3-bay.
Okay, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and reach out to the owners if we can find them. And we're going to have to somehow get a legal line there. Otherwise, we're gonna be tied up in legality. So let me see if we can get them to sit down and say, would you be willing to say this is the line, even if it means we have to buy a few feet from them or whatever is involved? Is that, could somebody okay with that?
I'm completely fine with that, but if we need to even, and I'm tired of meetings too, but if we need to have a special call meeting to make something happen faster, I think it would be prudent that we do that if that doesn't work, is what I'm saying.
Okay. If you will give me a little time to reach out and see if we can find these people and talk to them. If it doesn't work, then I'll call for a special call meeting to answer.
How long will it take you to build this once you get the go-ahead?
The go-ahead, once I get the line established, I get the site plans done, then it's on the contractor, so it depends on the contractor's load when you actually award the contract to the low bidder, so it's not that long of a process to build. You've got a lead time on your metal buildings, and as everybody's aware, construction's booming, so lead time's taking a while, so I don't know the last on a pre-metal building, but I'm going to say it's probably 8 to 10 weeks probably from the time they say go to get the package. So you're probably looking at
3 months,
6 months.
6 months.
I'd say from the time we get the property line established. So
Councilman Reese?
Could we go ahead, like Councilman Petty said, do some research on what the project cost would be for the 3-bay, rather than wait until after?
I think we have, don't you have a cost for the 3-bay?
Yeah, we were done.
yeah, we know what our estimated cost is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that's what you were, yeah. What is the estimated cost again for the 3-bay?
142,000.
Something like that, I think, yeah.
And that was back before stuff just went up, so
How much did you say?
we still.
Attorney Moore, is there
every
anything we're
day.
missing here that we should be doing to get that property line?
No, I don't think so. Again, depending on the urgency, I think you'll need to just determine whether you're going to be able to work something out with the property owners.
I'm going to make some calls tomorrow if we can locate these people and just ask. I think, isn't one of those Ramona Denny's uncle? That was, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't guess it.
I agree with Councilman Petty. I think we should make a motion and move on. We figured out what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get it done and move forward.
It's already been voted.
Yeah, I
No,
don't really
I'm
have
talking
to have
about with the, whatever, on the finding the people, whatever we talked about it, let's just do that.
Okay, well, I'll do it, okay.
I don't have to have a motion, I just want to.
No, I know, I just want to say whatever we have to do to get it
Okay, we'll
started.
move on and take care of it tomorrow, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I find out.
That works.
Okay, so we're going to unfinished business. We have the ordinance amendment to the ordinance amendment for the tax assessor's bill. This is the second reading? Second reading? Okay, yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, the next item is the Stevens Building repair. I think you are wanting to know.
Right, I did some research on that with some other things that are going on over there, and I think we might be able to put a actual different type of roofing in there, which will keep the acoustics and be able to heat the building. If we insulate the rafters the way they are angled and put that, I forget what it's called, the white, what's that called?
I don't know.
The white insulation, the panels of insulation on top of there, it'll keep the heat in and it'll keep the acoustics. And I think that's a very important thing. I think it'd be cheaper than what we planned. Would save some money. Plus, it would give us extra room to have our meetings, have more room for the public to be in there. So I think we should do the research on getting that done that way.
I think that was one of the quotes we got, was for the spray foam.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about insulation and then put the,
Acoustical tiles.
there's like another, it's like a sheet of plywood, not plywood, a sheet of drywall, but it's not drywall, it's insulation also. So we double insulated. On top of that, I think it would be cheaper than doing the drop ceiling.
So this would be under the roof you're talking about?
No, ma'am.
Well, I mean-
The roof's like this.
Right.
You insulate it, then you just take these sheets of insulation that are like drywall, and you just put the roof on with that also. You know what I'm talking about, Jesse?
You're saying the ceiling, you're talking
Yeah,
about from the
ceiling.
inside, I think that's where the confusion is, you're saying roof, but it's from the inside.
Ceiling,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, gotcha, all right.
Inside the ceiling, underneath the roof.
Where the rafters are, yes.
Okay.
On the inside of the building.
Okay. Do you, what kind of estimate?
That's what I'm saying. I think it's gonna be about $2,000, $3,000 cheaper. So, and then that will cut down the cost on that, plus it will also be able to put the new heating and air in there, and then we'll come out ahead, we'll have a good meeting room, we'll have a room that they can do the acoustics in, and I think it'll make everybody happy.
So we need to have it like an
I did
official
ask
quote.
an official quote on that, is what I'm saying.
So can you get that for us, or?
I could try it.
Yeah, we would need to get
Yeah,
that out.
but I need
I'm not
process.
real sure what that material
It's gonna
is.
be
I'm not
over
familiar.
5,000, so it needs to be bid out.
I heard somebody say acoustical tile, would that be what it is on top of the,
I wasn't referring to that,
Insulation?
acoustical tile is expensive.
is it, okay, I
But
didn't know, I
we
just
can,
heard
we can
you
get
say
a quote for
that.
that, but
Okay.
I was just talking about the insulation so it'll keep the heat and
Yeah.
air in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you will research that, because we have estimates for the drop ceiling and for the foam, but if you have something else, if you could bring that in, that'd be great. Yes, sir.
Two things I would say that he would need to make, if we were gonna go that path, he would need to make a motion. I don't think it's up to him to research that, but we would want to have it officially researched for the
Right.
city. The second thing, and not to get ahead of you, if we go this route, that's that route, but there's a whole nother route that we were discussing about a year ago before COVID. We started making some traction, and that was possibly selling the building and getting into some possible talks with the museum on it and with the spot. And we're not necessarily selling it for much, but it basically takes the liability off of our books, us still being able to use it. Les has to use the bottom of it as well. Am I correct on that, Les? So, and seeing that we've been leasing it to the museum at no charge, they probably extend the same courtesy, but takes the liability off of us. It's an option to talk about, and I just wanted to make sure you all were aware that was something we were talking about before COVID hit. And so,
Do you have any thoughts? I mean, we did discuss it, but I'm not sure. It was pro or con, we just discussed it, I think, yes.
Like I said, I want to make the motion for us to officially put it out for bids to put that type of roof or ceiling in the Stevens building.
Second.
Okay, all right.
And did you want to get bids for heat and air as well, or do you want to look into that next?
We've already got, I think Les got me a quote for the heat and
Okay.
air.
I gave it to you.
Yeah, he gave me.
Mayor's got it too.
Yeah, we've got the quote for the heat and air already.
Okay, well, here's this one right here. This is, it's a little different from some of the others we've got. This one is 6,400 from West Heating, I believe it is. Yes, sir.
Steve, do you have any idea approximately what this might cost just from initial
I
research?
was thinking right around 75, but that was one of those on the phone, hey, what do you think this will be, without knowing the exact measurements.
Okay. So from a procedural standpoint for getting this to, whether it's bid out or we just get quotes on it, want to have some sort of specs or have the opportunity for potential bidders to come in and look at it and make a proposal. If it's less than 10,000, we can do informal quotes. If it turns out we think it's going to be more than 10,000, we'll have to do an advertised bid.
Right, I believe it's going to be way under the
Okay.
$10,000 quote.
But we still have to get bids. So what he's saying, we have to have a scope of what, the description of what we're actually asking them to bid for. If you could get something like
Well,
that.
and again, I think that's the motion, that's what I understood the motion second to be, to get those quotes and to get that scope written and get those quotes.
Okay.
Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any other, any other thoughts about, you do this, Jesse, do you have any?
I think it's a it's a
What,
plan. I mean, it's a-
what is this called? I guess is what I'm saying, I don't know what it's called, didn't even look up how to describe it, so do you know, have an idea what it's called?
I'm the one involved in it, so I'm not sure.
Okay, just 1 second, Steve, do you have?
I think that'll be part of what the research is to find out what it's called and see.
Okay, so once you get that, are you gonna give it to us to put a bid out with the
Yes, ma'am.
description in it? Okay, all right, yes, sir.
Okay, Barbara, what was do we know what the estimate was on the AC and heat? Do you remember that?
I don't know, sir.
Do we
I
have
don't
an
know that we
estimate?
did.
Okay,
So that's what this is right here.
what is that quote?
6,400.
6,400 on the heat and air. So we're looking at, and again, we're guessing, so we're gonna get a real actual quote. But we're looking at getting up into the 80,000 mark on just repairs for a building. that we have
Did you
no,
get 80,000?
he said 75.
100.
70.
Okay.
7,000.
So we're looking about 14.
Okay, so we're looking at about 14. Okay. And that's a much lesser number. Okay, that's fine. It's still a number. And we might need to do this. Might be a simple thing to do. And we can look at doing it. It might increase the value if we do sell it as well. It's possible. So at those lower numbers, I guess I can retract what I was going to say on that. But I just want to make sure we're not continually dumping money into a building.
Well, can I say,
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
okay. Selling the building, I don't agree with, because we need some sort of indoor facility for kids, for parents, or for meetings or whatever, to let that building go. That's on down, let's talk about that another time. We're talking about the repair for the roof right now.
Okay.
So we have a.
But we need that, what I'm trying to say is we need an indoor facility. We have outdoor places for the kids to go to, whatever. We need to hang on to that as long as we can.
So we have a motion and second to do the research. Steve is going to do the research, give us a scope to put the bid out there. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So I've already talked about the lighting of the ball field. We're in the process of just talking to folks about how we can get that at the best price possible. Now, hopefully I have a report next time about that. The next item, crosswalk parking and speed limits downtown. Do we have a kind of a motion about this? Is someone making a motion about this that we can discuss or second and discuss?
If we can do the same way you approached Councilman Babcock, I could go ahead and do the same way.
I think we just need to have solid motions. We're kind of getting a little loosey-goosey with this. Could we
Is
have
it
a
a different
motion?
standard than for me?
No, it's not a different
Okay.
standard. What motion for action would you like to make on this?
City Attorney Moore, how should I start discussion on this? Because I guess I can make a motion, but I'd like to have just a thoughtful, well-received discussion between us. That's my intention.
Yeah, if you can make a motion that you think covers where you'd like to end up, then you can always have discussion related to that, and the motion may change, may be amended, but I think that's, the best way to proceed.
Okay. And the point of this motion will be that we have some discussion on it and just have some just good discussion. So my motion would be that we ask the Planning Commission to come up with a parking / street, sidewalk, whatever plan from, I guess it would be First Avenue to Fight Avenue, and send it on to the Planning Commission to work on a plan for that, to fixing those issues that we're having.
So could you repeat that? You want the planning commission to
do a study on how we could find different ways, different methods of fixing our parking, our street, our constant center lane issue, our vehicles coming out.
So the motion is to ask the planning commission to research a possible plan for downtown parking and crosswalks? Is that-
Downtown parking and traffic flow.
Parking and traffic flow. Do I hear a second to that?
I'd love to get a second just so we could discuss it and you guys can vote against it. It's something
Well, excuse
much
me.
needed.
If there's no second, then it would die for lack of a second. We do need to move on that. Okay, thank you. The next one is, again, crosswalks, parking, industrial drive, and Jefferson, which would be down near the...
I'd like to motion that we ask the Planning Commission to look at a parking situation again for families that are trying to cross streets during baseball games. We got a park that we're investing a lot of money into. Have a crosswalk plan because we have.
I'm sorry, what is the actual motion? Could you just make so we can get a motion second and vote?
I motion that we ask the Planning Commission to have a crosswalk traffic flow plan for down in front of the city park.
Okay, the motion is to ask the planning commission to do a plan of crosswalks and traffic flow by the city park. Yes, sir.
May I ask that you include in the motion parking? I think it got left out. I know we're on the same page, but.
Yeah. I'll retract that motion and I'll re-motion that it includes park. I guess we would be talking about, well, let me finish that motion and then you can make an amendment. Is that okay? Do you mind seconding my motion?
I will, I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to make a plan, ask the planning commission to make a plan for crosswalks and traffic flow across the city park area.
Okay.
Wait a minute, is there?
There was a second.
Is there discussion on this, please? Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sam, on this,
Excuse me.
park.
No crosstalk, just discussion, please, to the whole council.
Motion to suspend the rules for 5 minutes so the council can have a proper discussion on this very simple process that we can just talk like adults. It'd be very nice. And anybody second that?
Yes, sir.
If we don't discuss issues, and there's proper ways to do it, but if we don't discuss issues, we might as well go.
Well, I certainly need to discuss them, yes, but.
Let's discuss.
I'll second Cole's motion to suspend the rules.
So we're not going to.
We're going to suspend Robert's rules for 5 minutes to discuss it.
Right, that's a motion, yeah.
Okay, do I hear all in favor of that, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So how would?
Awesome. So we get to just all talk and have a nice discussion peacefully. So Sam, what I want to ask you is, where do you want to, what are you talking about as parking? Are you talking at the walking track? Are you talking over at this pool? Are you talking for both as far as that goes?
There's probably some areas, probably we obviously need all parking.
That was just one example.
At some point in time, the lots on the corner of Jefferson and Industrial Drive.
That's not limited to that.
South of Industrial Drive, it's my understanding were purchased by either the city or the county one, as well as the lot on the corner of
is it Jefferson?
Jefferson.
Okay.
And then the corner of Industrial and not more, but the other one down there, for the idea of parking, because they were trying to put, this goes back many years, they were trying to put soccer fields in there, and it's against the zoning, it's against the regulations for the subdivision. We've got some areas that eventually, without reducing the necessary parking to put adequate sidewalks in there, probably need some more lighting, and still have adequate parking, but to keep it from being people and kids running all through the streets.
So are you talking about north of Jefferson, or on the corner of Industrial and Jefferson, or south? Which?
Talking about south on, there were several lots there that houses were flooding, and I don't know if FEMA bought it, somebody bought it. I've been told the city bought it, but I don't know that for a fact.
What I think, and again, this is open discussion, let's all talk, let's have a good discussion on this. Where the walking track's at, we're working on a parking lot there. And then possibly, across the street there, and then looking at possibly getting a crosswalk between them, because we want to expand that park out and have some proper sidewalks in there as well. And I agree with you, the lighting would be great to have the lighting for that parking lot there, the parking lot across, and in the playground as well. And those are some areas, I mean, that whole area right there, we could look at having a great place for families to be out there safely walking back and forth. They can go to one park to the other and cross the street.
That will also help increase our revenue from the pool, because if there's more parking, there'll be more people able to attend the pool. That way the money will come back in faster to the city. So it would be a benefit to the city to do that.
Yes.
So, the field right there across, I know we have used that field sometimes to do games, major games for the spot kids or whatever, but do people park there still, right?
On the west side of Industrial Drive across from the walking track. or they park there, they
I'm
also.
talking about, I think that's the corner of Jefferson.
All
that I'm
right.
talking about.
The corner of Jefferson and the industrial on the south, it would be the southeast corner of that intersection. Are vacant lots, and some people do park in them during that, and that's fine, but it'd be nice eventually to maybe get them at least gravel, but to get some adequate crosswalks, because that entire intersection is broad and as wide as the Mississippi River, and there's people going every which way.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, if you had the front of the ballpark or the swimming pool, the parking lot there, if you go towards your house, is there a straight shot across to the, where the end of the parking lot ends, across to the walking
There
trail?
is not. We would have to build a.
Would it be like catty corner?
It'd be more than catty cornered. It would be very angled.
Okay.
We need to, at some point in time, whether we do it on whichever side of Industrial Drive that we put a sidewalk, we would need a sidewalk for probably, this is a guesstimate, but I'm gonna say, less 60 or 70 feet at least, and then put a crosswalk across.
Okay, because that house that's on the corner there's a fence.
Right.
Across there.
Right.
So would there be room for a sidewalk?
There's not on that side unless we got permission to move their fence in. We could do it without being intrusive to them, doing it on the other side of the street, but it's going to be more expensive because of utilities and whatnot, and having to change drainage.
Since we've suspended rules, I'd like Dr. Duke to.
Yeah, just from the planning commission side, just something, a reminder, all that is flood zone. So any development you do, if you shovel dirt, whatever you do, we have to go through the whole FEMA process like we do with the walking track. That's going to be, just wanted to remind everybody that.
I would say too, if we're gonna,
Barbara, she got a chance to talk yet. She raised her hand.
Yeah, that corner there where people are parking anyway, it'd be really nice to have a parking lot, but you're saying we would even to put gravel there, it would have to go, I gotcha. I didn't realize that, but that's good to know. But that would be a great, go ahead and develop that as a parking lot. I'd love to see that happen, as well as the crosswalks.
Maybe a little bit of additional lighting in there.
Additional lighting, definitely, because that probably is an accident waiting to happen
If we're gonna
down
put the
there if
crosswalk,
it's
we need
dark.
more lights.
Yeah. And what we could look at doing, instead of just kind of halfway putting it up to a road, put it on the west side, put it all the way up to Hackett Lane, which is where Joe lives on right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the east side, put it up to that Brooks Court right there. And that way it's got, it's just completely, Beasley Court, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That way it's completely, it looks good. This is the starting point, the ending point. We put our lights in nice right there, and that's where we stop. So if we have future development going one way or the other, at least we have a center base of, hey, this is how we want more things to look. And we're not just putting patches on, but this is just a nice sidewalks, nice crosswalk, nice lighting. Let's do it 100% if we're going to do it.
And with a grant from Parks and Recreations.
Yeah.
Is the flood zone there where that lot is with fence in there?
Pretty much all of that area down there is flood, it's either a floodway or AE, flood zone AE. And again, like even with our walking track and dog park, we had to have an engineer come in and do a lot of things. Or was it 3 months, 4 months or so before? They're really picky about what you do, and most of this will probably have to have an engineer come in, and that's going to be an expense. So I just wanted to kind of an added expense.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like it'd be ridiculous to put gravel in if it's in a flood zone, and if it does even rain down there, it's just gonna wash it away. I mean, if we're gonna do it, we need to develop it the right way and make it a nice parking lot.
So I guess
See, we need an estimate of cost of what we're talking about, so, yes, sir.
So I guess we're probably out of our 5 minutes.
Yeah, we are.
I would like to make this a better motion since we've all discussed it. So if it's okay if I retract my motion and reintroduce a motion based on y'all's input. I would like to send this plan to the Planning Commission to get us a study on how much this is going to cost us, to bring back to us, and we'll vote on that time whether it's worth spending the money. So the motion would be that we look at doing sidewalks from Beasley to Jefferson on the east side. I'm going to say this slower so Danielle can, right?
Okay.
From Hackett to Swope on the west side. A very lighted, I'm trying to think of the terminology, Dr. Duke, crosswalk, just a very visual crosswalk in between, Sam, where was that crosswalk going to be?
Crosswalk probably needs to be about 50 feet, no, let's say 75 feet north of the existing swimming pool and parking lot to go perpendicular across to the walking trail.
Will you repeat that, Sam? 75 feet, what?
A 75-foot sidewalk on the west side of Industrial Drive to enable us to do a crosswalk perpendicular to the road across to the walking trail area.
The crosswalk is what I was asking where, so 75 feet up is where we want to put the crosswalk to tie into the sidewalks. Approximately that. And additional lighting for that entire space of sidewalks on both sides. Anything else you all would like me to add to that motion?
Are we gonna try and pave the parking lot, or?
Oh, and I'm so sorry, and parking lot parts. I apologize.
Maybe.
And estimate out, and correct, you can help me with this. Estimate out parking on the east side where the walking track parking is. And then where else would we want to look at an estimate on parking?
I would suggest that we do this in phases.
Okay, so let's end that first motion without the parking, and then we'll do that, and then let's go to the parking part next, if that's okay. You all okay with that?
So if we're going to send this to the planning commission, are we going to leave the planning commission any room to add or subtract from this?
We still need a second, and then we can discuss.
Okay.
Well,
do we have a second?
I will second. Number one, I think they need to have leeway to decide what we need to do, and that's their scope of what they do.
Okay.
So I don't think that's built into the amendment that they, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll second.
Okay. Second, any further discussion of that? Okay. Did you read that back? Did you capture all that?
Sure.
Okay.
Councilman Evil made a motion to send the to the planning commission to find out the cost of sidewalks to Beasley to Jefferson on east side, from Hackett to Swope on west side, a very well-lit crosswalk between both, 75 feet approximately on the west side, perpendicular to the walking trail, and additional lighting for sidewalks on both sides.
All right. All in favor, please?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I would ask that someone do some deep research on grants to help us cover this, because I remember we have quite a few things out there right now that we're...
Let's call all good, because they got a $750,000 grant about 3 years ago, built approximately 150-foot long wall.
Okay, please do that, and we'll find out how they do that. I'm more than happy to. Anywhere we can get free money, I'm all for it. That'd be great.
I've got a second motion too, along those lines.
Okay.
I would like to motion that the planning commission look into, and I'm going to do these because we're going to do phases, I'm going to do 3 phases. The second phase, look at the parking lot development and lighting. Make sure I'm going slow enough, sorry. At the walking track. Anything else you all want to add to that part of that parking lot?
Part of our grant is the park. Are you talking about parking lot as part of the grant?
I think he's talking about developing.
Develop
the new
parking lot.
What would be the new parking lots?
With pavement, not gravel, everything. That's what we'd be looking at, yes.
Does that include the one we talked about, the grassy area there on the corner of Jefferson and Industrial?
I would think so.
That didn't agree with that. I'm going to do that in a third motion, so yeah.
So this is for the walking trail. Developing.
Yes, just the parking lot at the walking trail, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask you a question. So we're already putting the parking lot at the walking trail that's going to gravel, right? That's already been approved or not been approved?
That's part of, Evan, we're doing the handicap parking, and are we enhancing the gravel there also? What's part of it?
Just ADUs.
So you're putting in how many parking spaces?
2.
Okay, that's all. If we're ready for the parking lot, let's move to the next parking lot and pay that later, but.
Is there anything else you all would like me to add to that motion as far as that parking lot goes? Lighting and pavement is pretty much what we're looking at. Okay.
I'll second if that's the stage we're at.
Okay.
Okay, we have a second to the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, would you read the motion again, please?
Councilman Evil made a motion for the planning commission to look at the cost estimate for paving the parking lot and lighting at the walking track.
Okay, all in favor? And
So,
again, I would ask you, please, because we have tried for grants for a long time for some of these things, if you can help us find these, please do. Reach out to wherever you know to find these grants. We're probably talking about several $100,000, like you said, Sam, so. Yes, is that too?
I've got, I'm gonna have a third one, but I'm gonna ask Councilman.
Our time is up, just make a
It has to do
motion.
with this, so, but Councilman Petty had asked this to be in phases, so that's why I'm motioning for this in phases.
Okay.
Okay. Where was the area you were talking about as far as you wanted for this motion? For
But
the,
it's where they already park in the grassy area that's across Industrial Drive, corner of Jefferson.
It would be the southeast corner.
But it's in that part.
Catty corner from the swimming
Thank
pool.
you, catty cornered, I know, southeast.
From the
Yeah,
swimming pool,
that's
right?
good.
Yeah.
you know, this is the park right here.
So that, you're talking about the area the houses
So right
were
here.
removed from the
Okay.
flood zone.
Where
Is
the
that
houses,
what you're
the
talking
houses
about?
are. In fact, houses, I think, came out of there because it wasn't in the flood zone. Some of
So
those
we're gonna
houses
pay
came
that?
out. But this is a big open grassy area that people a lot of times park in when they're at the
The city owns this property.
City owns that property.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So, thank you. Sorry, I just had to get clarification on the proper motion. Motion that we research adding a parking lot on the corner of Industrial Drive and Jefferson Avenue West on the southeast corner.
Okay, industrial driveway, I'm sorry.
And Jefferson Avenue West on the southeast corner to include pavement, lighting, and well-lit crosswalks.
Second.
Okay, we have a second to that. Any discussion?
Yes. Me.
Yes, sir. Okay,
I
Mr.
believe
Sack.
you look back on that, when FEMA paid for that property, there was not to be anything left on there that wasn't man-made. Because they had to take the concrete up there next to the Sands house.
Right.
It was on that property, they had to take half that driveway off there,
Mhm.
because it could not be nothing man-made
That's
put on
right.
that
Because
property.
it's a flood zone.
Now, that was
Yes, sir.
that was the section that was really flooded
Yeah.
bad on that
And it
side.
still floods.
That's where the house is now.
That's where the planning commission.
Yeah, the planning commission will look into all that.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
And just remember, this is not to do this, this is to have the planning commission research it, bring back their findings to us, and we make it.
So we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. There's, so we're back to regular session now. The topic of Carmack Avenue, do you have a motion, Councilman, for that?
I'll make this as a motion. I'm going to motion that on Carmack Avenue, I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up here. I'm going to say this slowly so that way you can write it down. I would motion that between Main Street North and Colonial Street on Carmack Avenue, we ban parking on the north side of the street only. and allow parking on the south side of the street. And after I get a second, I'll discuss why that is and we can vote it down, but I do think it's
Okay, we have a
diligent.
motion to ban parking on the north side and to allow them on the south side of Carmack. Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, if there's no second, we move on. That dies for lack of a second. The next new business we go into here is, first item is a request for 25% an hour salary increase for Jesse Crawford for obtaining cross-connection certification. If you will allow me to let, I suppose, Derek, do you want to speak to that? Okay.
It's just an incentive pay for obtaining a license that benefits the city. That license is for checking backloads at different businesses and stuff. And we have to check over right around 100 of them a year. So it's good to have licensed people.
Is this something that has been done in the past to increase for different?
Yeah, there's myself and another employee that has a paint license, and they've been given an incentive for obtaining a license.
Do I hear a motion to that effect? Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second then.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
I had discussion.
Okay, go right ahead.
Back up.
Go right ahead.
I think it's good to have these incentives. I think it's vital that down the road, we need to look at incentives for salaried employees that have special qualifications. If they have more qualifications in this area, more qualifications in this area. Danielle and I have talked about this plenty of times where it's the same like in the military, Steve, where you have certain qualifications, you get a little bump in pay on those qualifications. This is something like we need to, I'm all for this, obviously, right here, but this is going to open up another door for more employees to come in and do this, so we need to go ahead and set a standard for those qualifications and be across the board standard, so we aren't picking some employees over other employees. There's actually a standard there. That's all I have for discussion.
Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor of the motion to the 25 cent an hour increase? Say aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. So we have a budget amendment. Next, Attorney Moore, it's for the pool repair. We would have to amend the budget for that.
Right, this is, of course, that was an expenditure that wasn't in the budget.
Okay, you've got the amendment, yes, sir?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion on that? Yes, sir.
Yes, I didn't see the other two bids. They weren't presented to me.
There weren't two other bids. We had,
You had two other estimates that were well
we
higher.
had two people, we had a person who came from Knoxville and one who came up from Alabama and walked the pool area with the two supervisors, Les and Derek. They talked about if they were to do something like that, it could be $400,000 to $500,000. They got real excited about doing it. Then we put out the bid notice in the paper. We had one bid that came in from a group in Lafayette that has done their pool up there. The repair that's the only bid we had. It came highly recommended. I think even our engineer can attest to the fact there aren't a lot of companies who bid on these kind of things. In fact, I think they had 3 grounds up in Lafayette before they finally got a bid. So yes, sir. Yes, yes. Sir.
So they didn't turn anything in after coming and looking at it?
No, they didn't.
And so that again, that brings out, I don't feel we had enough time to discuss other possible options. It seemed like it was just driving towards a repair. And there might be other options that they may cost more, but they may last longer. And again, we didn't have time to really discuss what we were getting for that repair. We got to see the one bid, and then that was it. And it got rammed for.
You got a scope. There's a scope that you were all given scope of repairs. It was in your packet last week, I believe.
It sure was.
So they had a discussion.
It's everything from your filters, skimmers, lines, the whole new filtration system, because we can't.
Yeah, and I would have liked, what I'm saying is I would have liked to have heard from the other two people that came and saw you. I would have liked to heard what their always lowest bid isn't always the best option. And I like saving money, trust me. But it's not always the best option, and there might be a reason it's the lowest bid.
Mr. Evans, do you know about the repair work they did? I'm sorry.
That's okay, I think two
Go
council
ahead.
members asked to be recognized.
Go ahead.
Councilman Babcock was first.
Okay,
He was
go ahead.
first.
What I was going to say, we put it out for bids, we followed the proper procedures. One bid came back, we received the bid, we got a motion and we got a second. I think we should move on with that.
Okay. Councilman Peters?
Agreed.
Okay, all right. If there's no further discussion, we'll go through the vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Of the budget amendment. All opposed?
Opposed?
The budget amendment passes, so that will be added to the budget as amended. All right, thank you. Okay, the next one is then the resolution that we have to contract. Is that in here?
It's the resolution C2 or CR 2021.
This one right here?
Yes.
Okay. This is just a resolution to allow us to go ahead and sign the contract. And Mr. Moore, do you want to speak to that at all? Or?
Sure, of course, what we had at the last meeting when this was initially approved was the notice of bid and the bid that was submitted by Thomas Group Contractors. I did prepare a short agreement that I sent to them. They had a couple of minor changes, and I emailed that to the council earlier today. Have you all had a chance to review that or have any questions about that agreement? Because there were some small modifications, and I'm glad to answer any questions about either the resolution or the contract.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the contract.
Motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that?
Again, I would have liked to see more options out there. I think that we should have seen as a city council what came to you, Les, against this.
Well, nothing came to him. The two people came and walked through.
They talked about, yeah, I'd like them to talk to us as well.
Well, they both said $45,000,
all I got.
and they really weren't interested in doing it for us.
It's hard to talk to somebody when they don't want to come down here and talk to us, Cole.
Yeah. They might not have thought it was worth their while to drive from Knoxville, Alabama. I don't know. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of approving the resolution to sign the contract, say aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
So it passes. Okay, ordinance, and these are sent over from the Planning Commission, so Dr. Duke, if you would allow them to speak to this. We have, the first ordinance is a rezoning of Vivian Lane. Could you speak to that, please, Dr. Duke?
Sure, that's the first ordinance.
This is what we're looking at, right? Is that-
Yeah, in your packet, you have actually a picture or drawing or graphic of what we're looking at rezoning. If you look at it, that's good. If you look at it, what we're looking at rezoning is an area zoned C3, and it's adjacent to R3, and it actually meets more of the qualifications for R3. That was zoned C3 before the Highway 25 came in. That was just a section that came across, is in C3. But it really doesn't meet the qualifications for what a C3 should be if somebody wanted to put something on a C3. It's more in tune with an R3. And so, and we have some individuals that are wanting to develop that area, and the development that they want to put on that would be more in tune with an R3 instead of a C3. So this ordinance is to rezone that one property to a R3 instead of a C3. And you
just kind of point, so you're talking about this right here. That's what we're talking about.
The one that says change from C3 to R3.
Okay.
That's off of our zoning map. Up at the top, that's off of the tax property. and you can see which property it is.
If I could have a motion to that fact in a second, then we could go ahead and discuss it, so.
Motion.
Second.
Sam, did you, okay. All right, any discussion on this, please?
I'm all for this, I think it makes sense.
Any further discussion? Does everybody understand where we're talking about here? It's at the end of Vivian Lane at the cul-de-sac there. Yes.
I think we need to do a little clarification, because Dr. Duke kept saying R3 and C3, it's saying R3 and C2, so that way we get the wording correct.
You're correct, that's right, I was saying that.
We have to make the wording correct.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I said that, let's see. No, that is I may have labeled it wrong on there, but it's actually, the ordinance is written correctly. So
Okay,
the ordinance
that's good.
is correctly.
Because it says C2 on our paperwork.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, so the little arrow here that's pointed, that should actually be.
But it's correct on this sheet. It's on the actual ordinance, it's correct.
Okay, right, okay. Any further discussion on that then? Further discussion? Okay, yes, sir, did you? Okay, let's have a vote then, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next ordinance from the zoning planning commission is regulation of townhouse development. Dr. Duke, could you speak to that, please?
You know, we have some individuals that's wanting to develop townhouses in the city, and we've never had an ordinance to regulate that, and this is basically just an ordinance to regulate what townhouses are. Basically, if you look at this ordinance, it's very similar, if not identical, to most cities our size, the regulations. They're pretty standard as far as regulations.
I'm sorry, I forgot to read the number to clarify. It's P2021 0225 parentheses 2. So excuse me.
And it's if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But
do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Okay. Discussion.
Can you elaborate on the townhouses where they might be?
Sorry.
Can you elaborate where these townhouses might be, where be located?
Right. Right now, we have them approved for the R3 district only at this point in time. It's R3 district. And
so if this were changed, they could be approved for that.
right. We can always amend this ordinance later on. But we have people that are wanting, that own property in R3 that wants to build an R3, and it's a fit for R3 right now. So our thoughts were when we were building this ordinance between the state planner and myself, that if let's do the R3 right now because we have people wanting to build in an R3, and then if later on, once we see these people, they're ready to develop as soon as all of this goes through. And once we see that, if we need to amend the ordinance and make it for other zoning areas, we can do that as well. We just go through the same process.
So this just applies to that one parcel that you had on here,
No,
right?
any R3.
Well, are we voting then to allow any R3 to have townhouses on it, or do we have any control of it?
No, any R3.
I'm not sure that we don't need a little bit more, maybe defer this and think a little bit more on this one now.
Find out where all the R3s are.
Exactly. And
Yeah, where they're at.
Yeah. I didn't bring a map. Actually, we don't have a whole lot of R3. It's not very much R3, but we looked at all of the R3s when we were doing this, and they were all seemed to be suited for it. That's why we only did it in R3 instead of R2 and R1 and C1 and C2 and C3. The R3 seemed to be more suited for that than any of the rest of them.
Yes, sir.
Then I would make a motion that we defer voting on this tonight and possibly not on a special call meeting because we're wearing those out, but before the next regular session, have a public hearing for those who want to come speak that don't want a townhouse next door to their house.
Okay. It requires a public hearing anyway, doesn't it?
If you pass it on the first reading, you're going to have a public hearing before you do it on the second reading. So that, and that gives us, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Did you?
I was going to bring that up. We still have to have a second reading to make it an ordinance, so we could do the public hearing before the second reading.
So just to clarify, the people who are wanting to build, this wouldn't just affect them, this would be all of R3 we're talking about.
And I might add, because we don't have an ordinance to regulate it, they can build it anywhere they want to now anyway, because we don't have an ordinance to regulate it. But the only thing about this is an ordinance to regulate it, if they build it. Then it will become a non-conforming, and then when our ordinance does pass, we can't regulate what was non-conforming. We can't regulate what was already built. So really, they could come in and build it anyway, whether we want them to now or not, because we don't have an ordinance for
So
it.
this is to help in the future regulate where it could be put. Okay. So we have a motion to, well, actually, we have to have 2 readings anyway, so you want to wait for the second reading and do the required public hearing, Sam? Or do you have a?
I thought we had a motion in a second to
There's already a
approve.
motion second on approving the amendment, then Sam said he wanted to make a motion to move it, but we haven't voted on the first motion yet.
So did we get a second on,
He needs to withdraw his motion or get a second.
okay.
Well, apparently mine was out of order anyway, because we had a motion on the table.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and second to approve on first reading. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we know we have to have a public hearing for the next one. So we would suggest bringing anyone you have who knows that's next door to R3 that would care one way about this.
Could we have something, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, that would be prior to the next, the public hearing prior to the next regular meeting.
I was like, could that be something that's included in our package of where the R3s are? Or is that something that we individually all need to just go look up?
Well, we've got a zoning, do we put the whole zoning map?
I've got it in PDF, so anybody that wants to be sent the zoning that we have, and it's the official zoning with some of my markings on it, things that have changed. Our zoning map that's down there, that's the official zoning map, is not really up to date, because we haven't got ordinance yet, right? So I've got one with PDF that will tell you exactly where all of the zoning is right now, and I'll be glad happy, if you'll just give me your email, I'll be glad to send it to you.
If you'll send it to us, we'll send it out too.
Okay, sure.
Good, we got, yes, ma'am.
I don't think you asked for anyone opposed, not that it matters, I'm not
Oh, I'm
opposed,
sorry.
but I think you only asked for vacant.
You're right, that's right, I thought I'd hear everybody say yes, so all opposed, excuse me on that, so Barbara would be counted dead, okay. Thank you. I knew that. It sounded like everybody said yes, okay, thank you. All right, the next is,
Councilman Babcock has a point of inquiry.
yes, sir.
Yes, can we put these all into one voting item, let Dr. Duke go over each one of them, then we can vote on them individually instead of going over one, then going to the next, Can we do it all in one lump sum?
So you want to put all of these?
I want to include all of them so that we can go through all the 3 motions and we can vote on them.
We are down to the last 2 at this point, is that?
We got 4.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion to pass them together on first reading.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 3 left.
There's 3 left.
Okay,
I make a motion that we pass all of them as a collective.
okay,
Second.
okay. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Discussion?
Does one of these happen to be where they're putting houses like in some weird places in town, like
In a hole.
in holes?
Well,
We've got 4 left, right?
they have to meet our zoning code. Okay, so if it's in a hole and it doesn't meet our zoning code, then they can't do it. But if it meets our zoning code and it's in a hole, although it's crazy.
I probably didn't use the right terminology there.
I threw that term.
This one looks like it's in a hole.
Yeah. And I'm taking up a little bit of time and talk maybe I'll turn, but what we've done, we've really gone out and good building places here and building lots in the city. And so, the developers are building on lots that we would normally not build on. And that's where we run into trouble with streams running through these lots. They're 45-degree angle, you've got all sorts of problems. And that's where people are having a hard time making it fit into our zoning code setbacks and the new building envelope and et cetera, et cetera. So that's, it's just the nature of the progress, I guess. All of our good building lots are pretty well gone.
So we have three ordinances left from the planning commission. And we have a motion and a second to vote on them all at once, but are we going to have discussion on each, or you just want to vote? Go ahead and vote. Okay, so the first one is about, we've already done the townhouse.
It's 6, 7, and 8. Don't do go over each of those all at the time.
Yeah, just,
Okay, if you would go over the next three, Dr. Dick, the first one is P202, 102, 253,
I think that requires a vote to agree.
Yeah, there's still a discussion over his motion, so I have some
All right,
discussion points.
we have the motion and second. Any further discussion on that? Yes, sir.
Yes, the reason I don't want to lump those in is because I've got a few issues with the last three, and I hate to lump them all in. I'm good with the first three, but I have some issues with them, so I'd like to address them separately, and I guess this would be the time for me to do that, so I'll keep the floor on it.
Well,
I'm in discussion, and I have the floor right now.
The motion.
I have the floor right now in discussion.
Would you?
I have the floor
No,
right
you do not
now.
have
Yes,
the
I
floor.
do.
Mr. Moore.
I don't know why he wouldn't have the floor at this
Because we
point.
have a
Still
motion and a
He's
second.
discussing
I'm
that
in
motion.
discussion right now.
Well,
I have the floor. Thank you, Mayor.
The motion is to approve them all on first reading,
Right.
and he's speaking to that at this time.
So
Yes.
you're speaking to
This
approving all
is-
of the first reading?
That's
One
correct.
individual.
That's not the motion I made.
It's not.
The motion was to vote on them all at one time as one, instead of.
That's correct. And he had a
Okay.
second, so there's discussion on
Discussion.
whether we
That's
do that. I am giving my discussion on why I feel we should not do
Okay.
that. So I have the floor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. The reason I don't want to do that is because I've got some issues with the last three here. As far as the group assembly amendment, I have an issue with that because I feel like that's targeting a very specific business that's coming to town. I don't like targeting individual businesses. I think we should be encouraging businesses, so I don't care to target it, and the discussion on that can be had, that's okay. I had an issue with the second one as far as penalties and remedies for violations in compliance. Again, there's issues I have with that. There's a lot of depth that goes in there. We want people to comply, but I think that we can look at some different ways to comply. I feel like it needs further discussion than rolling it into everything. And that's going to go for both 2254B and 2254A. That's why I don't want to roll them in.
Is there any further discussion about rolling these in to vote on? And may I clarify to vote on, but then not to discuss, is that correct? That's what the motion is?
No.
What was your original motion?
Basically, the motion was, instead of going through this one, have a vote, discussion,
Okay.
we do it all at one time instead of doing it 3 individual times.
Okay, so then we would discuss all three once this is passed.
All at one time instead of
Okay,
individually.
all right. And we have a second to that. Let's just vote on that motion. All in favor? Okay, all opposed?
Opposed.
Okay,
opposed.
so could you, let's have a hand raise, I'm sorry, I can't.
It's 4-2, Mayor.
So all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, and all opposed? Okay, so we will take them one at a time. All right, so the next ordinance is P-2021-0225, I think this is 3. This is the group assembly one. Is that the next one?
Right, that's the next one.
Okay. All right, Dr. Duke, would you
But
speak to that?
basically, it's pretty straightforward. Again, these are things that's coming into our city, like the townhouses, the group assembly, all sorts of different things that we do not, in our city code, or our zoning code, we do not have that listed as a use, or a use permitted, or a use permitted on the field. We don't have that in there. So therefore, we don't have any way of regulating these businesses at all if we don't have the code or the ordinance to do that. So this is in response to knowing that we're going to have something like group assemblies comes into the city. And this is pretty well laid out, just pretty well like all other cities lay out group assemblies. This is I mean, it's not really there's a couple of sections on it that is a little unique, but other than that, it's just something that you can regulate anything, any business, and this happens to be this business.
So we're talking about a business going in the future that would be an event center or something of that nature.
Event center, right. And this describes what an event center is, and if it falls under that, then it becomes regulated under this after it gets passed and it's codified, or the ordinance passed. It's codified.
Is this similar to what other cities have for their event centers? Because I know
very similar. This is kind of a new thing for some of the smaller cities. Most cities that, when you think of an event center, you think of 300, 400, 500, 1,000 people in an event center. And of course, those regulations are totally different from this, but this is very close to a lot of the small cities that we looked at, their event centers, the way they regulate their event centers. It's not too unique.
Any further questions about that?
Point of inquiry.
Yes.
Don't we have to have a motion to be discussing this? Because I was required to have a motion, just making sure there was no motion.
Well, he was explaining it, now we need a motion, you're right.
So are we okay with explaining things before
Well,
there's a motion now?
When it's brought from another, like the planning
Just asking.
commission, yes, we do need an explanation. So
Okay, are we all cool with that? We can have explanations before motion then?
I believe it's brought over from the planning commission, we need them to explain what this is about. If you don't want that, that's fine.
I personally don't see how we can vote on something without minimal discussion anyway, so we discuss what we're talking about. We're losing sight of what we're supposed to be here to do.
Motion to approve, so that we can move forward to discussion.
All right, motion to approve. Did I hear a second? Okay, so we're now in formal discussion now that Dr. Duke has explained this. So any discussion on this, please?
Okay, so the reason I'm against this is because this isn't really something this is kind of an overreach of city government. This is something that's already fallen under the state. Basically, it's regulated by like class 3, and they're operators of residential and non-residential buildings other than hotels, motels, and rooming houses. So really, technically, the state of Tennessee exempts these businesses anyways. We're just putting a regulation that doesn't even need to have a regulation. This didn't come up until a business came into town, and we are unfairly targeting. We didn't do this for our own event center that we have as a city, but now we're doing it now because business is coming in to possibly compete with it. I think this is, again, just an overreach of government.
Dr. Duke?
I think we're getting a little confused with business license and tax purposes and zoning. Those are two totally things. This has to do with zoning regulations. What you were talking about, the statutes you were talking about, and the regulation has to do with, it only regulates as far as business license and taxes is concerned.
Absolutely. And may I?
Excuse me, let's have some other discussion. If you have questions or thoughts here, everybody's supposed to get a chance to discuss. Yes, sir.
Could you give us an example of what this, a specific example of what this would regulate?
Okay, if somebody has an area, a building, if it's over 50% used for gatherings, social gatherings, events like weddings, dances, parties, whatever, where they charge for the people that's coming in, and it's an event, and it's less than 200 people that's in that event, or if the sole purpose of that building is for an event like that. You've got the definition there. I'll be glad to read the definition, but any of those things that are done in an area that's 50% that's used for that, or if it's totally used for it, if the building's totally used for it, then that comes under these regulations.
So this is saying that it would have to go to the planning commission, or does this outlaw it?
No, it doesn't outlaw anything. It just regulates it. Like, for instance, one of the things it regulates is for instance, how many. We can't even regulate as far as the planning commission is concerned. We can't even, our zoning, we don't have the ability to regulate even the maximum occupancy, that comes through the building inspector stuff. So that all comes under them. This is just regulating where it can be, how much, okay, like sound, too much noise, that sort of thing. It goes through all the things that it does regulate. It regulates, let's see.
Does the planning commission get the final say-so?
No. This will be use permitted, so it'll be allowed in the zones. I mean, this is not restricting anybody to anything. It's just regulating. If that business leaks under this, it regulates some of the things they can do.
We have two people.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Councilman and councilman.
I have a question for Chief Hyatt. How many buildings in the city do we have that will hold 200 people without breaking fire code?
I'm sorry, sir, how many buildings?
Having the city that would be held for public gatherings that hold more than 200 people
I don't know.
without breaking fire code?
Let me help you a little bit. This is the maximum under the definition of this. That doesn't mean that they have to be, that they can do 200. Like for one of them in particular, we're talking about, when he looked at it and did his fire code on that, the maximum occupancy is 151. It meets this definition because it's under that. It doesn't mean they have to, they can go to 200. It's the occupancy. And that is also based on how they structure the thing. Like, a lot of these places want to do, like, they want to do weddings. Okay, so the chairs and everything will be different. So the maximum occupancy for that activity will be different from, say, they have a dance and everything's cleared out, so the maximum occupancy. So but that all comes under the building inspector and the fire.
That's what I was wondering, was how many of those, I mean.
Councilman, did you have a question?
So the one that's bothering me the most is the parking. We're saying one space per 4 expected patrons.
No. Yeah, but let me help you with that one a little bit.
Well, I wasn't even finished with what I was going to say about it.
Yeah, this is so far this is allowed in C1, C2, and C3. C1, even though it says that, if you go back to that exception on there, C1 has no parking requirements, period. So any businesses in C1 has no parking requirements. That's in our zoning code.
Okay, well, what I was going to say is, if you're talking about an event where, say, 100 people are going to be there, what's that, 25 spaces that you would need?
Right.
So I'm thinking through where this new business is, that it's kind of the elephant in the room, but everybody knows we've got a new business that's here doing this. I mean, there's not enough parking for that.
Well, if the elephant in the room is doing it in C1, and again, there's no parking requirements in C1.
Okay.
See what he's saying?
So it won't affect them at all?
It won't affect them at all.
And again, just one second, like in Gallatin, they have what's called an event center, and this is similar to what their regulations.
Right, very similar to the one in Gallatin.
Okay, yes.
I was just going to make the comment, it doesn't appear to be very restrictive or keeping that business from doing everything that they want to do. I don't see that if it's in there.
No.
To be honest with you, we pretty well developed this to make it as free for businesses to do. We tried to make as little restrictions as we could and still be safe and meet our zoning codes and all that sort of thing. But the restrictions are here, most of them are for safety, and just fitting into our regular zoning code that we already have.
Councilman Babcock, you had something in Councilman?
No,
Okay, Councilman Evil?
2 things. One, the elephant in the room, we're kicking the parking can down the road as we're not addressing this as a council. We didn't even have a second. So second thing on it is this can be restrictive in certain ways when it comes to sound. Let's say that new business wants to have a Zumba class at 8 a.m. By the sound codes, they can't. They got to wait until, what time would they have to wait till?
No, you didn't read it, that's changed.
That got changed?
Yeah. There is no time limit on this now. It goes by, if you go over to section sound regulation 116049C, says for the purpose of this ordinance, the term plainly audible is defined is sound that can be detected by a person using his or her unaided hearing faculties. And the reason why I use that term is because that's been run through Supreme Court and it's been upheld.
I like it a lot better, okay. I didn't see the change in that. Okay, that's much better.
Any other discussion of this?
Is that business,
Yes,
is
sir.
that?
Sorry. Go
He had his
ahead.
hand up, I'll respect that.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I do have, and again, I don't know this, but I do want to look at this between now and second reading is the 6049B2 that provides that no group assembly activities shall be conducted on public sidewalks, streets, or public property anytime without prior authorization. We may want to change that language between now and second reading, because I think that may be a little broad based on the definition of group assembly, but we'll just, for future reference, if this passes, I may suggest a change there.
What section was that under, sir?
It's a 604, it's part, it's on page 311, 6049B, paragraph 2, under additional concerns and requirements. It's just a more broader prohibition against group assembly activities on public property.
It's without approval by the council.
Right.
So you're saying it's too broad? Or
I think it could, the way the definition of group assembly is, it could basically prohibit even like a informal, impromptu meeting of people that might have some First Amendment issues, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll look at that.
He's totally right.
Okay. Any further yes, sir, you have.
So, I see now it's got the second reading. I just wanted to make sure that we were able to contact whoever owns said new business, and so that they can be here too if they wanted to discuss anything on that maybe they had concerns with too. I wish they were here tonight, but.
And again, I think, like you're saying, this is going forward pretty much, isn't it?
Right.
A lot of this.
I have a procedure question for the attorney. You know, technically, if there's any appreciable change to the wording of this, and it has to get not approved here and then go back to the planning commission and then come back. Would this be an appreciable change?
I don't just strike, you know, I think it's well within the caption, and I don't think it's a significant enough change. That part, now if the council has other changes between now and second reading, that may change.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay.
Any further discussion? Well, it has to be a council person, I'm sorry, unless you.
Motion to suspend the rules to hear from.
Just a second, I'm sorry.
Citizen.
What is your name, please?
My name's Michelle Barnes.
Okay.
I'm a resident.
Oh, wait, suspend rules.
Motion to suspend the rules to hear Ms. Barnes.
Okay, 2/3 vote, please. Everybody?
Aye.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. One of the reasons I came tonight was about the parking, and because of this new business topic and the limited parking that you mentioned. And if we do have 150 people, and you know, if I'm going to a wedding, I'm going solo, I would be the only one in my car. So I know it's not going to be typically 4-person to a car. My concern is I do live down I live off Riverside. So going down that way toward my house at Slope Road, there's already a congestion and blocking of sight there where Rojas is and the stop sign. And if I'm assuming correctly that the business is there on that section of street across from the library and down from Rojas and Cannabis, then I would say I'm really concerned about the parking. I already have to dodge the parking in front of Evil's restaurant because I drive a small car and there's huge trucks and people that are coming out into the lane to go straight. Well, I'm in the turning lane as a small car trying to turn left, you know, to go down Swope Road. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. I would really beg to have the topic of safety and parking placed back on the agenda at some point. I beg to limit some sort of parking or to at least define parameters for any business that's going to bring in 150 people in that small square. I have a real problem with that because of safety and line of sight, being able to see where I'm driving.
Okay, thank you. Back to council discussion. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's again, our town's growing. We're getting businesses back into the square. And that's what we want. Businesses in the square is good, it livens it up. We've got to address the square at some point. This is not the time to do it, but again, it's going to come back and it's just going to be a circle. It's going to be a circle, so.
All right, so we have any further discussion? And we have a motion to approve.
Yes,
So-
and a second.
In a second. So could we see a show of hands, just because the voices are sometimes hard to hear? All in favor to approve this on first reading? It has to go through second reading too. Okay, all opposed? Okay. So this means if any other group comes in, we have no ordinance to cover what happens there.
For now.
Okay. Unless this.
Would you want to declare that fails officially, so we don't have any confusion at the next meeting?
Yes, it just fails.
Okay, thank you.
It's like yes, sir.
Motion to approve ordinance P 2021-0225-4A.
All right, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, this has to do with building permits, and if you could, Dr. Duke, just give us a general description of what this is, please.
I might add that these are sister ordinances, A and B are sister ordinances, and the reason why they're sister ordinances is because one won't work without the other. One actually amends the municipal code, one actually amends the zoning code for it to work. Basically, at this point in time, we have no penalties. There's no teeth in our municipal ordinance or in our zoning code, which it really shouldn't be the zoning code anyway. If it's a penalty, it really legally needs to be in the municipal code, because that's where the legal stuff needs to go, penalties and so on and so forth. So, but we have nothing in there, no teeth to any penalties for somebody that blatantly says, I'm not going to follow the zoning code, I'm not going to I'm not going to get a permit, I'm going to do what I want to, and just, so this basically, A and B both, makes it a penalty. And of course, municipalities can charge more than $50. I think it's a class C misdemeanor, can't go any higher than that anyway. But that's what, so it just puts teeth into, and it clearly prints out what, in case somebody decides to, that they just do not want to follow the code.
Yes, sir.
Is this discussion or no?
So we
Yes,
have,
it is.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So, the only problem that I would have is, verification. When you say blatantly disregards what they're supposed to do, I'm with you. If somebody does it and they don't know that they're doing it, is there a formal warning process before they're just charged $50 for, say, just call it what it is, ignorance maybe, of that? Or does it go straight to a penalty of $50?
Right. We've never been, the city's never, if somebody that just comes in and does, that don't have the knowledge of what's going on, or they do something and they say, oops, sorry, we'll fix this, or we'll come and get the penalty, or come and get the permit, or whatever. The city's always given leniency in that area. This is more for people that just blatantly does, blatantly says, I'm just not going to do it, or they don't care, or they,
I just want to make sure it says that in there so that we don't get caught up in some situation that we're voting to do something and then it's taken in a different way.
Right. I don't know that this does that, though. I don't know how that would be worded. the attorney may have a better idea for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reality is if you're in violation of the zoning ordinance or any other ordinance, the town can cite you for violation and you can take it up with the judge as far as any defenses to that.
And then you're hiring a lawyer and going through and spending even more money. So most people are just gonna pay $50.
Now, again, I think to Dr. Duke's point, most of the time with the zoning or even some other violations chief could talk to, you know, they'll issue a warning, but as far as what's in the code, it doesn't require that a warning be issued.
Well, it's kind of, if you don't get a building permit, that's kind of a no-brainer. You're supposed to have a building permit. Build. Yes, sir.
It's kind of like in law enforcement. If you have a state law, if I pull you over for speeding, I do not have to give you a formal ticket, I can give you a warning ticket. The codes enforcement is going to be up to law enforcement. They don't give everybody a ticket every time they pull them over, they're not going to cite them every time they do. They don't have a lot of time to enforce these ordinances anyway. So if we want to go full out and hire a codes enforcement officer, they can ride around all day long and look at your grass and everything else, that's not going to happen.
Can I address that real quick?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I understand that, and that makes sense to me, but just like a lot of people would say when they're pulled over, not necessarily by any officer, I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying, but if this officer likes me and says, I'm just gonna give you a warning, and then say you don't, and you're able to give me one, I mean, that's gonna be a subjective issue that this person has a $50 just because we don't like him. Not saying anybody would do that, but it gives the opportunity for that to happen.
I'm sorry.
All laws are subjective. It's the way it's going to be.
Right, but
you can't change. You're not going to be able to change that.
But we could put in here that there's a safeguard of a warning for everyone. I don't understand why that would be hard to do.
For the police to have their policy.
Dr. Duke, did you want to clarify for a second?
Right. Maybe I clarify this. It can be done anyway. I mean, with or without this, we can penalize them because it's there. All this does is clarify what that penalty is in case somebody blatantly does it and it goes to court. This is what most cities are doing now, small cities, because we have people that, although you have sent them warnings and so on and so forth, they blatantly, in other cities at least,
I understand that.
they blatantly. So in other words, without this, we can still do it. We don't have to do it, but it just gives it more of a, if it comes down to the fact that it has to go to court, this makes it easier for our city attorneys to do what they're supposed to do.
Understand that 100%.
Yes, sir.
I've got a few points to make on this. First one, I'm going to agree with Councilman Peters on this. If you're it's again, you can decide to enforce it or not. This town, especially of all towns, if you have some political adversity to someone, that you can decide, you know what, that person I don't like, I'm going to enforce this. Oh, I like that person, I'm going to let that go. I can't tell you how many times I knocked on everyone's door here. Everyone said, well, they take care of them, they're okay. But over here, no, they force it in, they're a different family. So I think this opens up that door, number one. Number two, it's been going great. We haven't had a need to have teeth. I'm completely fine with the codes and everything like that. I don't think there's a reason we need to have teeth. I think it's good. Third, I've seen issues since I've been on the council where there have been codes violations and the cities come out, you guys come out, figured out how to fix it all up, and it's been fixed, and no one had to have any penalties. No one had to go to jail or Class C misdemeanors. No one had to have fines, and it's been working. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Could you give an example of how this might apply in a case? Because we're saying it's not just a first-time offender, right? If I'm understanding this. No, I'm sorry, Dr. Duke. We're not talking about someone who just...
Right. All this does is if, in fact, this just gives, if it does go to court, this just makes it more clearly cut out what the city can do if it goes to court. I don't think this is going to change anything that the city has always done, which we've always been very lenient on trying to work with people. This is not meant to change that in any way. This is just meant to, in case it goes to court, it gives in case somebody says we're just absolutely not going to change anything, then this gives us a better way of doing it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Attorney Moore, we could do that anyway, but with this, it just gives us a little bit more of it's documented better. But based on our charter and our zoning code and statutes, state statutes, we could do it anyway. Am I correct in that?
So would this be occasion, like say someone built a house and they didn't observe the setbacks for it, deliberately said, I'm not going to do it?
After they've been told.
After they've been told.
And they've been told, and then they say, we're not going to set back, and so on and so forth, and we go out and we remeasure and we try to help them, and so on and so forth, and they said, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Okay.
And then you can, this is what this is for.
Councilman?
I understand that point. I think it's my point that's not being understood, because we are clearly outlining what we can do if this person doesn't follow what we say. We're clearly defining, I get it. What we're not defining is the protection of someone who, although it's always been lenient, it may not be for this one that comes in. That's my point. It does not protect that one-time offender from a $50 fee, and then they've got to go get an attorney, and then you're not protecting that one time. I get, if somebody's doing something wrong over and over and they're disregarding our ordinances, yes, we should show our teeth there, but we shouldn't show our teeth in aggression we shouldn't even have the option to show our teeth in aggression to somebody who just was ignorant of that ordinance. So I'm saying protect that one time while showing our teeth when somebody disregards our ordinance. That's all I'm saying. That's my
Would there be
point.
some language we could add?
That's all I'm asking.
So, Mr. Moore, do you or Dr. Duke have some suggestions for language?
Well, I mean, you could certainly, and I have seen it done in some other, add a provision that, no citation will be issued till after a warning and time to correct the deficiencies been addressed. So if that's what the council wants to do.
Would you like to make a motion to add that?
I'd like, yes, to add that language, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion to add the language.
Another procedural issue, since this was come out of the planning commission and it's an ordinance, this is just a procedural thing. Would that be an appreciable change, or would this have to go back to the planning commission and then bring it back to add that?
Well, with respect to the ordinance, it doesn't. And I don't know necessarily, I'm trying to think, I think we could do it, but I don't want to make it more broad than the council wants to make it. Certainly, we may be able to amend just the ordinance, not the zoning ordinance, to do that same change. We could do an amendment just to 225-4B to provide for that notice, which wouldn't have to go back to the planning commission for review. And the language in 4A could stay the same.
So what would be the phrase again?
Well, yeah, that I'm not sure, but I can work on something. Is the intent to give them,
everybody gets a warning.
A warning before
No citation will be given without
right.
first
So
giving a warning.
15 days, 30 days.
First violation of the ordinance will be considered a warning. Second and concurrent violations will be issued citations.
Let me ask you this, could we do that as an amendment to the municipal code, such that the only thing that would technically have to go back to the planning commission, if it was an original change, would be the thing that would go in the zoning code. But if it goes in the municipal code, it could originate in here as the amendment and not have to go back.
Right, that's what I was saying. We would just be amendment to 4B and not necessarily the language in 4A. So.
Right.
And I did look, and this, because I was surprised, it's not easy to find in the city code to begin with where the authority for citations, it's actually in the enacting ordinance where it adopted the code. That's more detail than you want, but anyway, that probably needs to be addressed too, just to make it more clear.
That's true.
But if there's a motion and a vote, I would suggest it be to amend 2021-0225 4B to provide that citations for violations of building permits in the section in this part 1 of the ordinance not be given until after a warning has been issued and the property owner has failed to comply.
After so many days, maybe,
Yeah.
whatever that day count would be.
So you would put
15
that in
days.
part 1, is that what you're saying?
I would put that in part 1 of this ordinance, yes, where it says I can amend that language to provide for that.
So we
That's my motion.
have a motion that
That
Attorney
language
Moore
is that.
amends the language, and then what do you do with it after you amend it?
It'll come back for second reading if that passes.
Okay, is that okay? Is that all right?
I need a second.
I'll second your motion and then I'll discuss.
Well, you get first discussion, you made the motion, so would you like to?
Nope.
Okay.
I said everything I need to say. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Again, I feel like, I just wanted a second so we can have discussion. I feel like we're just opening up a can of worms again. Even with that warning, people can be politically targeted in this town if they're the wrong politics, they're the wrong family. This puts teeth behind it, and they can threaten you with fines and misdemeanors, and all that stuff. We're opening up a can of worms again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It ain't broke right now. We're good. We can fix it without having teeth.
Yes, ma'am.
I think since we're gonna have a public hearing, right? We're gonna have a public hearing, then any of those individuals that might be targeted could come at that time and speak. But, I mean, you're really trying to pass an ordinance that will keep people from having a political opinion or calling them unethical when that may not even be the case, so.
Yes, sir.
I think with what we were told is they can do that now anyway. So what we're doing is putting a buffer in between those teeth. So for the people that aren't openly violating, I think it's the best option.
So you're saying currently we have?
I didn't say it.
Oh, currently we already have penalties then?
Yeah, you know, we can do that anyway. We can, even with the first offense, we can do that right now anyway. But this just lays it out more in detail as to how that offense is. And it just makes it much easier if somebody just blatantly says, we're not going to do this, and it has to go to court. Well, this is not meant for the casual person that comes in and just makes a mistake. This is not what this is meant for. This is just to actually clarify what the law already says we can do.
So we could appeal. So we could appeal if someone was targeted, and with that they have an outcourse to appeal.
Sure, that's what the Board of Zoning Appeals is for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? So
We're going to vote on this amendment.
do we have an amendment that you?
Yes, I mean, we'll have to draft it and put it in writing for second reading, but I've made some notes on that.
So the motion is that Attorney Moore will draft an amendment, put it in writing for the second reading.
How many days was that?
I think 30.
30.
30, I'm sorry.
I'll go with that. I'm good 30.
Okay, all in favor of that motion?
But can I get a clarification exactly what we're voting on?
Okay.
I made a motion to approve the amendment. We had a second. Now we've got an amendment. Which one are we voting on this time?
This is, Councilman, your amendment to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost track after
Right now we're voting on
original motion.
Councilman.
I don't know who seconded
Peters.
it.
Yes, and I seconded his.
Okay.
So we're voting on his amendment.
This is an amendment to your vote. This is an amendment to your motion for Attorney Moore to make it the amendment that puts the clause in that gives the buffer you're talking about.
Yes.
And we'll leave it to Mr. Moore's discretion to come up with the correct wording that we'll put on this ordinance on second reading, and there will be a public hearing on that too. Yes, sir.
I know this is going to sound like I'm crazy. So once we vote on this amendment, that means we're approving this ordinance with that amendment.
Yes,
Is that
that's
correct?
right. That's right. So we're
Okay,
going to
just want to make sure we're all on the same
Yes.
sheet.
Still have the second.
I'm good with that.
So we're
Wanna
going
make
to
sure
vote
we're
on the
good.
amendment, Councilman Peters, put on all in favor.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Thank you. Now we go back to the main with the amendment to it. So any further discussion on passing? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this will come back with the amendment to
didn't do it. no.
Okay, do opposed.
Okay, are you opposed?
You want to call for everybody? I mean, I am, but no.
Okay, all opposed?
That should be for the both, or is that for both ordinances?
That's A and B.
This is A and B, yes.
Okay, and you were, yes.
Just clarify.
But only B will
She
be
has
amended.
to call opposed, so we gotta.
Okay.
I don't know who was.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, thank you.
5-1, thank you very much. And then we move on to the next. Personnel policy ordinance. Now, we didn't copy out this for everybody. We do have it on disk if you want. It's basically what we discussed in our, do you want to address this at all?
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
see if
Make your
we might
motion.
have a motion to
Motion to approve.
Okay, and do it. in a
I'll
second.
second your motion.
Okay,
Have discussion?
okay. Mr. Moore, would you?
So, again, what I had sent to the council today was what we had received from John Grubbs with MTAS, which he had prepared at the work session that you had in January. I had made one very minor change with respect to investigations of any complaints against the mayor, just to provide that those would be reported to the city attorney, but they would be referred back to the council to be investigated by a third party, independent counsel. That was the only change I made. I didn't want to make any other changes to what Mr. Grubbs had prepared because wasn't sure what the council wanted to do with those. So that's what's here. If you want to pass it on first reading tonight, or if you don't, but it's here for you.
The main changes were just to the holiday pay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make an amendment. I've talked to several about the birthday policy. I've talked to several supervisors, several employees. We've limited it from 30 days before to 30 days after. They like it 30 days before up to the fiscal year ending. That way we don't limit them to this little block window to use it, because a lot of them will lose it because they can't use it in certain times, especially for like long.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
The only thing that Julie said today was that our program, our assist program doesn't allow for it until the week up, so I don't know if that's something that can change in payroll for them to be paid for that. That was her concern. So.
Julie's a clerk. So
Yeah, she does payroll. And so she was concerned about that 30 days prior because it's not in the system at this point to allow for that.
Yes, sir.
Can we take it out as a birthday holiday and just give them one administrative day a year, so that way it's in their administrative pay? That way you could give it paid anytime?
I don't know.
Mr. Moore, do you?
Sure, you can give them, every employee and 1 day per year.
That
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend the policy to read that each employee will receive one administrative holiday a year, not just for their birthday, but for the year.
But that would be so we would
replace the birthday holiday.
Okay, we have an amendment to this ordinance that we're voting on to replace the birthday holiday with one administrative
holiday
per year, at any time.
At any time.
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any
Point of inquiry, what you were talking about, City Attorney Moore, where was that in that policy? I'm just looking one more time.
I'm not sure. I'd have to I'm typing the notes on what the changes are, so I'd have to go back and close that down to look at it.
You talking about that birthday?
No, I was talking about it was like the bullying and
the investigation part.
The investigation part. I was looking for where that's at.
Oh, okay. Well, I can find that.
I think it's the same way that the council would be handled if they had a complaint.
We've got a motion in a second. Can we continue, please?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We have a motion.
I have a point of inquiry that's open right now, though.
Well, no, we're voting on this.
Well, that's what I'm
motion
saying
right
is, I'm good with that, but we've got a second on the motion that I made to amend this policy. You're talking about something that's not got nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Right.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. Any further
so let's continue.
Any further discussion about the administrative day in place of the birthday? Okay. All in favor?
Aye. I did what you did.
Any opposed?
No, go ahead.
Okay, hold on just a second. All right. Do you have that?
We're good. I was just like,
Administrative.
I'm looking
place
for
of the
it.
birthday.
It's not highlighted on this screen, unfortunately.
It's under holiday.
Oh, I have that first change. I was looking for what Councilman Evil was asking about.
Yeah, just before we vote on this, I just wanted to see where that's at, is all, so I can make an informed vote, that's all.
Sorry, this one is it's not highlighted, so it's not easy to. It's under the harassment policy. Okay, so.
I'm looking, Todd, if you.
Did it just combine council and mayor in either case?
So, yeah, so I could open it up in Word and see what page it's on, but it's under the, after you go through the harassment and then the sexual harassment policy, it's reporting and investigating all forms of harassment complaints. Did you find it?
Yeah, I don't know what part is highlighted, if this is where you're at, if that's what you're talking about.
Right, so the language that I changed slightly is where it says, in the event the harassment complaint is against the mayor, the investigator shall be, oh, no, this is not.
That's not it.
Yeah, that doesn't include my change.
So is it down here where it's for everybody, the council and the mayor and everybody?
Yeah, no, it was in that section, it was that language, but it's, that change is not reflected there. So the language that I would propose is to say that if the complaint is to the mayor, that it's reported to the town attorney, but that the council will appoint a third-party investigator, and then there was a reference to, or that may be appointed by the liability coverage provider for the town, but that language is not in there.
And it does need, I agree with Mayor Smith, it does need to read towards all elected members. Council shouldn't be allowed to harass either. The mayor shouldn't be allowed to harass. It should be reflected. So if it's reported on a council member as well, that has the same procedure. Is that correct?
Right. The only difference is that an employee doesn't have, an employee can report it to the town attorney. If it's against a council member, then they can report it to the mayor. But either way, it's going through, the investigation is going to be conducted by a third party, not the town attorney, and obviously not.
Point being that the council and the mayor is not above the law. We are subject to the same harassment policy. We are not allowed to harass employees.
Correct. And the only, again, the distinction is so that that gives an employee someone to report it to other than having to report it to the mayor.
And then the outside party is because Mr. Morse, the attorney, is hired by us, so that would be appropriate.
I'm good with
it. Okay, any further, yes, sir? Any further?
Motion to approve the amendment, the ordinance as amended.
Second.
So we have it in amended form. Okay. We have a motion and second to approve it as amended. Any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. So we have a resolution somewhere for building inspection fees. Is that Councilman Eagle, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, and unfortunately, just due to some, Danielle wasn't able to print them off. That's okay. I'll kind of read this out for you all. I sent it to everybody.
So are you making a motion to approve this? Is that what we're doing? Or?
Would you mind, Mayor, if I did what Dr. Duke did and be able just to give a little bit of briefing forefront on this? Would that be okay with you all?
I think that's legitimate.
All right.
As long as it doesn't drag out 30 minutes like a lot of things seem to have done on that.
Hey, I think this will make it a lot shorter if we can do it this way. I'm right there with y'all. So, is that okay? Can we formally do this?
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I make a motion to suspend the rules for 5 minutes, or as long as it takes for him to talk about it.
I'll do less than 5
minutes. That way we're following Robert's rules.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, I'm sorry, to suspend, I'm sorry.
Robert's rules, so he can speak out of turn and have a discussion on this resolution.
Okay, I'm not sure we have to do that. We go yes, we have a motion for him to go ahead and
We have a second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, we-
Second.
Okay, all in favor of letting the council person have 5 minutes, if that's what
No,
you're
no,
saying?
not 5, just to discuss.
Up to 5 minutes.
Up to 5 minutes, open discussion.
Okay.
And we can discuss amongst ourselves.
Without having a motion on the floor, okay. Yeah, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Cool part about this is we don't have to ask for time to talk, we can all talk together, so that's awesome. All right, so here's basically what happened was, the American Legion had an issue come up. We had a project that was, we were wanting to basically start with beautifying Main Street with the American flag, give flag education, and raise a little bit of money for the American Legion. And so we brought this up to the Planning Commission, and the reason we brought the Planning Commission is because we wanted to do it right, and we wanted to do it safely, and we wanted to do it within building code. So we wanted to do all these things. That is something we wanted to do. What came out of it was we found out first the opposition was that it could possibly go against the downtown grants as far as the beautification grants. So we kicked it back to the American Legion and we said, well, let's just install the bracket, and what people decide to do with their bracket is up to them. And so installing a bracket, we found out, does require a building inspection to make sure that bracket's installed properly so it doesn't hurt anybody. Fine. We still, as the American Legion, we didn't have an issue with that. What we had an issue with was that each bracket was going to be a $50 fee. And in a way, that ends up being $50 to hang a flag on top of the money we're trying to do. Have an issue with that. So, that being said, that went back and forth. Some stuff got possibly worked out to where it's not going to happen, but again, I feel like that unfairly hits those areas. I asked John Poole, our CMFO, what we brought in revenue as far as building inspection fees. We bring in about $6,000 on it a year, so it's not really that much revenue, seeing that we're $1.1 million net in the clear every year, like over where we're supposed to be, and our net position changed that way. So my resolution is, just I'll roll through it real quick. I got the first few parts, just the first 3 years where our net positions increased by $1.1 million. We've collected $6,000. We feel like sales tax revenue can definitely cover that area. We have an unassigned fund balance of $4.3 million. And the people of Carthage have been told that we charge a fee if they're to hang an American flag on their own property above the sidewalk, essentially charging a fee for their right that should be free. So, Section 1, be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the Town of Carthage, Tennessee, assembled in regular session on the 4th day of March 2021, that the building inspection fee be paid by the Town of Carthage and not by the people of Carthage. Be it further resolved, this resolution take effect on April 1st, 2021. This resolution shall be spread upon the meetings of the Board of Aldermen and Town of Carthage. So I'm motioning that we abolish that building inspection fee.
Specifically for
Is that
the
all
American
building
Legion.
inspection fees?
All building inspection fees.
Well, is that,
Because I feel like you can't you're basically, well, I guess we need to have a second to have a discussion on that.
Well, we're got the 5 minutes suspended.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
so just so I'm clear, are you wanting to pass this resolution or something different than this?
Wanting to pass this resolution,
Okay,
yes.
so that's.
But they've got questions.
But you're saying that the city would pay the $50 fee, or you're saying that you want to abolish it? Because you said something about the city
It-
paying.
He's saying the city would pay the fee.
Yeah.
But he's.
We'd abolish basically the fee happening towards the town, because we still got to pay the building inspector,
But
correct?
let me ask this question. If we're paying the $6,000 to do this, and the inspector goes out, who's gonna pay the inspector? We're gonna pay the inspector too, right?
Yes, as the city.
So, and you're saying that's gonna be a total of $6,000?
That's $6,000 is what we did last year.
Are all building permits $50?
No.
It depends on
Yeah, so we
the-
can't waive all building permits blanket like that, because if we're waiving one that's $50 or one that's $1,000, it's done.
On large things, some of them can run up to $1,000.
Yeah,
you
we-
know.
And if you do have something like that, I mean, that, God forbid, if that were to fall, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean, it's not just American flag, by the way, it's
No.
any sign hanging over a sidewalk. It's not like anyone here saying, hey, we're not patriotic, I think we all are patriotic, we're not picking on the American flag. It's also a federal law that has to be inspected by by a licensed inspector over a public right-of-way like that. Or
You can put
pedestrian.
it up at your home or anywhere else, you don't have to have an inspection.
We have no issues with
It's a
that
public right of way.
whatsoever. We want it to be safe.
but
That's
you're-
why we brought it to begin with. The issue becomes a moral issue, that inspection fee. Now, like, we could say, we could waive it for the American Legion, which I'm all in favor of, obviously. But then that opens up another door for waiving it for whoever else.
Did we have a second on this? We're discussing it.
We suspended the
We suspended
rules
rules.
for 5.
For 5 minutes, or how long have we suspended?
5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to go back to Robert's rules and vote on it.
Okay, all right. We're going, the
Second.
motion is to go back to Robert's rules and vote. Yes, sir.
We've got discussion.
Yes.
I'd like to see the resolution that you're saying in writing. No, I want to,
So,
before I vote.
before you vote.
Let me do this then. Well, you motioned to accept it, so do you?
No, I didn't.
He motioned to vote on it.
To vote on.
I motion to vote on it. Big difference.
So then we can't have discussion technically, and you have to have a 2/3. He's calling a question basically, so you have to have 2/3 to have a call a question.
I'm just saying I wanted a written resolution.
I'll make it go fast, Sam, if you just withdraw your motion.
So, you want to
We have
table
plenty
it?
of time.
Do you want to table it and when you can come in with a written resolution?
That's on me. I didn't-
No,
There's a call to question, so we have to vote on
we
the
have to
call
vote
to
on this
question.
resolution, then we can go from there.
Exactly.
Okay, so the
We have to
motion.
vote on the call to question though, first. Am I correct on that?
He made it.
No.
Well,
It is
because
one question.
we've suspended the rules, but now, once we go back into session, we don't have to vote on that question. Once we go back into the regular session, then the motion, I think the motion was originally approved and seconded before we
Now
went into
now
the
we're ready to take
session.
the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion on whether to approve his resolution,
Right.
and a second.
We're just gonna vote on it, whether we
Then
approve
we're
it
going to vote
or
on it.
oppose.
All in favor of the resolution Councilman Evil has presented to waive all taxes, all
Are we still in discussion then?
building, no, we're voting now.
I think this is going all right.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right.
I'm saying.
You abstain, so it does not pass. It's 4 to...
But I'd like to also put that I'd like to have these resolutions in front of me, so that way, when we vote on something, we have that document.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that anybody would ever change anything, but I think that we need to have it in writing, so we know what
Definitely,
we're working
yes.
on.
I agree with you. There's a family member who was one of the city employees that they had.
That's on me. Got
But-
it.
Yeah,
but it's,
I don't have a problem reading the other one, but
Yeah.
I want to read it.
yeah,
I think you would do the same thing.
absolutely.
So our next one here it's a resolution for property tax. Councilman Evil, do you have something? Yes, sir.
Point of inquiry real quick, before I read this one, because.
Wait a
we've
minute,
had
we
this-
have a, yes, sir. You may.
Can I make a motion? I make a motion that we table these until we have the paper documentation in front of us, so that we can all read them and see what these resolutions are.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion second. Any discussion on that?
And this is just for this one and for all future resolutions, ordinances of the town, they need to be in front of the council in writing for them to review. And I know Councilman Ebels circulated these via email. I think they're the same ones. But anyway, just, they need to be before the council.
I think it was just an oversight.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. I did email this out to everybody too, so it isn't anything super new, but I get that not everybody gets their email. That's fine too. I'm completely fine with that as well, so we can, I don't have any more
So we
discussion.
have a
on that.
motion to table the last two until we can get paper copies of this.
Can I make an amendment to that motion? Can we, well, never mind, go ahead. I withdraw my amendment.
I'll make an amendment to that motion. I know what he wants to do. We will see all three of these in writing at the next council meeting, so we can vote on them while the writing is in front of us.
Okay. We have an amendment to table all
I'll
three of
second,
these
yeah.
until second, till we have the next meeting
Thanks.
and have it in writing.
We have a second.
We have a second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so all three of these are tabled? Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, all right. We are adjourned.